Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you so much for joining our webinar about the top 5 common questions about EU citizenship. Just a few reminders before we get started. Remember to put any questions or comments you have in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Today we're going to be covering what's involved in a discovery call, who's eligible for EU citizenship, the process to regain EU citizenship and how long that takes, as well as a Q&A with you, the audience. We are lucky to be joined by our guest speakers, Alexandra and Marina, who are two of Polaron's prominent EU citizenship specialists. Alexandra specialises in Czech citizenship and has worked at Polaron for a number of years. And Marina is very knowledgeable, particularly about German citizenship, as this is her home country. Our moderator today is Eva Hussain, who is Polaron's director and founder. Eva is a recognised leader in the fields of translations and European citizenship and regularly presents at a range of lectures, conferences, and universities on the topics of language services, cultural awareness, and history. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. So Polaron has been founded in 2003, and since then we've helped over 10,000 people obtain EU citizenship and reconnect with their European heritage. Our clients receive support throughout their journey with a dedicated case manager to support them through it. So now I'm going to hand over to Alexandra, who has a short presentation for us. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about your journey to citizenship with Polaron. So I am an EU citizenship specialist, and we have many others on our team. And basically, we are trained professionals who understand the different pathways to EU citizenship. So whether it's Polish, German, Czech, or Slovak, we can tell you if you're eligible and what your citizenship options are, and a little bit more about the process as well. And we help with even the most difficult cases. So nothing is too difficult for us. And then, so during your discovery call, basically this is a free call that we offer to anybody who is interested. So essentially during this call, we will find out if you're eligible for citizenship through your ancestry. We will explain to you how we can help you find those crucial documents for your citizenship application through our research services, and we will create a customized plan for you. So everyone's action plan towards citizenship is different, and we'll kind of go through that for you specifically. And then also we'll answer all of your questions about European citizenship. So how to get the most out of your discovery call? First and foremost, I would say be prepared. So whether you have already filled out your family tree, I would say bring that along, or have a clear understanding of your family history at least, so you can tell us a little bit about your family's history story, and then we can get a better idea and clearer understanding of whether you're eligible and how. I would also say to read through the FAQs on our website. That's just going to give you a good idea beforehand about the eligibility requirements and sort of how, if you are eligible, and then like how we would approach that for you. Next, I would say to understand your motivations. So I want you to be able to tell me in our call why you want to get EU citizenship, what it would mean to you, you know, what's really motivating you to go through this process. And then finally, I would say come with questions. So this is your opportunity to ask us anything. So you're going to have a one-on-one with a citizenship specialist. So bring along any questions that you have. We're happy to answer all of them. And finally, book a discovery call with us. So you can book a discovery call by clicking on the links in the YouTube description to schedule with us, using the booking links that we send you if you're registered for this webinar, or contacting us via email or phone call.
Okay, thanks, Alexandra. So I'm going to lead the discussion, and hopefully we get some questions from the audience as well. Both you and Marina have had an introduction, but I just wanted to add that both Marina and Alexandra are very, not just experienced, but they very passionate about their jobs. It is a conversation that sometimes touches some raw nerves, because we're talking about people's history, people's heritage, people's identities. And they really do take care of the information that you provide and guide you through any, challenging, or, sometimes people even have like skeletons in the closet. So we're going to ask some hard questions of Marina and Alexandra about that in a minute. But firstly, Marina, I might throw that at you because you specialize in German citizenship, but typically who is eligible? What sort of services are we able to provide people if they decide to proceed with us when it comes to German citizenship?
Okay, hi everybody, first of all, and thank you for joining. So yeah, it depends obviously from country to country who's eligible. So for Germany, there are different pathways. So one is called determination of German citizenship. So that can be an ancestor like your grandfather, great-grandfather, that was born in Germany and then immigrated later on to a different country. There is also the restitution pathway, which is, a very sensitive topic for a lot of people, which is for descendants of people that were persecuted between World War II. So a lot of people, obviously, of Jewish descent that, had to flee, in that time between, 1933 and 1945. That's a pathway for descendants of people like this. And then there's also the declaration pathway, which is a fairly new one. It came out in August 2021, and that is for children that were born after 1949 to a foreign father and a German mother, and the parents were married at the time of the child's birth. So they, can claim their citizenship back now, because it is sort of discriminating, that females weren't able to pass on their citizenship. So that's sort of the three main pathways in the German citizenship.
Thank you. And of course, you mentioned the relatively recent change of laws, but Germany prior to 2021 had very strict rules, and most people that, for example, became a citizen of another country would lose it. So the laws are a lot more flexible as of 2021. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's a wide range now for people and families that now are in that category where, they can claim their citizenship back now. Because before that, it was 1975. So if you were born after 1975, you could always receive the citizenship from both sides, the female and the male. But before that, it was not possible. So it is a big difference now. Yeah.
And of course, during the discovery calls that Alexandra mentioned, we look into everyone's individual circumstances, because everyone's different. Like, there are commonalities, and we apply the German law to your situation today. But every person you speak with, you pull out or tease out all that kind of information that you would need to confirm whether someone's eligible or not. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And we try to help, obviously, in the best way we can with the information the client has at the time. Sometimes obviously there's things missing, they're not quite sure. So at least we can guide them in the right direction if there is information missing where they could find out about it. But yeah, normally we can give clients a pretty good idea if they are eligible, and what the next steps could be. Yeah.
And for which pathway. Alexandra, you specialize in Czech and Slovak, and Czech and Slovak legislation is both simple and very complicated, right?
Yes.
How do we know that somebody's eligible for Czech, let's say, just in at a very basic level?
Yeah. So usually, I would say basically, if someone has a parent or a grandparent from Czech Republic, that's usually a good indicator that you would be eligible for Czech citizenship. You can even go as far as a great-grandparent, but yeah, I would say that's probably the most that you can go. And then, yeah, if they held Czech citizenship and didn't lose it, is first a good indicator, but then also if they did lose it, that is also another pathway that you can do for Czech citizenship. So yeah.
Slovak's different yet again, because Czechoslovakia used to be one country. Now there are two different ones. So, you know, we really need to look at the dates and events in people's lives to see whether they qualify. But how does Slovak differ from Czech, just at a basic level?
Yeah, so Czech has two pathways to citizenship. Slovakia has, up until last year, they only had one, but that recently changed. They now have two, but that depends. Usually to be eligible for Slovak citizenship, you all the way up to your most direct Slovak ancestor had to have gotten Slovak citizenship at birth. The recent law, obviously, that came in changed that a bit. So if you had a great-grandparent, grandparent, or parent who lost Slovak citizenship anywhere along the way, you also could be eligible for Slovak citizenship.
Right, and they also have this pathway called Slovak living abroad, meaning that it's a confirmation of nationality. So it's similar to the Polish Karta Polaka, where you can get a certificate of Slovak living abroad, and then once you move to Slovakia, it activates and you can get citizenship through that pathway. Yeah.
Exactly right. Yes.
Okay. But again, just like with German, we have lots of knowledge and lots of experience in dealing and teasing this information out of people so that we can understand it. And I think it's fair to say, both of you, I'm sure you will agree with me when I say that people are like, why are you asking me all these questions? I don't know. You know, we're going back 100 years. How am I supposed to know that? But we do, so that you can be successful in the journey, right? So you guys ask a lot of very curly questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, cool, good. And sometimes they're difficult for people to answer, and sometimes we have to do research in either Germany or Czech Republic or Slovakia to be able to provide answers. And in terms of how long things take, Alexandra, I'll start with you. How long typically does Czech citizenship application take?
Usually 9 to 12 months. Obviously, if you are really lucky and you have all the documents that you need together already, that can take even maybe 6 to 9 months for you to have like a passport in hand.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, if research needs to be done to find those documents that you're going to submit with your application, that can add an extra 3 to 6 months to find those documents. But yeah, we would say 9 to 12 months for Czech citizenship.
And you mentioned documents, so I wanted to ask you now about what's involved. So we have an office in the Czech Republic and people that know all the details about how it all works. But could you briefly tell us what's involved in getting Czech citizenship through whichever pathway?
Yeah, so with getting Czech citizenship, the most important thing is to have the right documents to submit with your citizenship application. So those would most likely be birth certificates, marriage certificates, and in some cases, naturalization certificates. Some people are lucky and they already have those documents in original or certified copies, which is what they need to be. Others will need us to do research for them to get those documents, which is really quite easy for us because we have lots of experience in getting these sort of documents. So essentially, we'd be doing that research to get that for you. And then once we have all of those documents together, then we can start working on your citizenship application. So that's like filling out all the forms, doing the translations and the apostles. And then we can, once we have all of that together, we can submit that application for you.
And we do that directly with the Czech government. We do not work through consulates because they don't actually process the application. They send it off to Prague anyway. So our colleague Jakub and his team physically file applications in the relevant offices. And Marina, that's no different to what happens in German at a basic level.
Yeah.
What sort of documents do we typically need? How long does it take, depending on the pathway?
Yeah, so there's a bit of a different time frame for each pathway. So the determination pathway is the longest, with probably around 24 months from when you submit your application. Declaration and restitutions, they call it sort of a fast track process. For restitution, mainly it's because, you know, Germany still feels very sorry, obviously, for what happened, and they prioritize these cases, saying that it's sort of at the moment up to 12 months, mainly because there is still a big backlog from COVID also, so it's a little bit longer, but still around 12 months. And then similar to what Alexandra said, if you need research done, we can do that in Germany to prove if that your ancestor was German. That depends. The research can take, sometimes it's very quick with a couple of months. Sometimes it's, it can take up to 9 months. It depends on which cities. Some are very fast, somewhere, have quite a lot of workload. But yeah, normally around, 6 to 9 months for research, and then you can go over to the application process.
And of course, something that people rarely think about, but the holdups happen sometimes at the client's end, because you need to, firstly, for any of the citizenship, you need to prove who you are, how you are related to the people that you're applying under, and anybody in between, and also prove certain events. So like whether someone's naturalized or not. For Polish, it's whether someone served in the foreign army. There could be other documentary evidence that we have to provide. And everything has to be apostilled. It has to be presented in the right way to the Czech or German or Polish government. And, we know, for example, that some US authorities or even UK authorities, and even in Australia, where we are based, take a while to provide documentation. Sometimes they have to be found in archives. We might know that they have them, but they, the processes behind the scenes take however long they take. And even, nowadays we also get clients from all corners of the world, including Mexico and Philippines, and each of the jurisdictions that we work with have different requirements about documentation. South Africa is a nightmare, I hear. Very slow. People are very frustrated with how long things take over there, particularly during COVID, but also outside of COVID. So when we're talking about the timelines, it's not always what the German or the Czech or the Polish government does. It's sometimes what happens at your end with documentation that we have to have. The other thing I wanted to mention quickly here is that we also need to provide those documents in original or properly certified, so notarized form with apostille, with lots of levels of certification. And that is because the governments that receive these documents need to be sure that they're authentic. So there's often a process to present the documentation in a way that works for them. So we don't argue with the Czech government. We give them what they ask for. We give them what they want. And it's therefore quite important to kind of listen to us when we tell you what to give, which brings me to the next point. And look, I manage some of the comments on our Facebook page, and often, particularly for German, Marina, I have to tell you, I get people say, oh, just go to your local consulate. Why would you work with Polaron versus your local consulate? What are some of the benefits of working with us?
First of all, look, I mean, of course you can go to the consulate,
yes.
But also the consulate is not very really trained for that purpose, right? Consulate, they do a lot of different things like passports, etc., registrations. So that's just a little tiny part they do can help you with applying for citizenship. So first of all, they don't always have the accurate knowledge either. Like a lot of clients said, oh, but the consulate told us this. And
yes.
Then I unfortunately have to say that's not quite correct. So that's the first thing. Always, take it with a grain of salt when you go to the consulate, that, they might not know all of the regulations or the law changes when you go there. But so we have much more experience in that kind of thing. We're up to date when it comes to law changes. We deal with cases every day. And then also a big thing is obviously the language barrier. you know, you will have correspondence with the BVA in Germany in German. So, you know, this is obviously a big part as well, that, you know, if you don't speak the language, or, you know, basic or fluent, it might be very difficult for you to, you know, later down the track in your application to chat to them. So we can, you know, and we take care of everything in between. So all of this is taken care of, and we then, you know, come back to you and explain everything in detail when we hear back from them. So it definitely gives you a peace of mind that, you know, that you have skilled people on the other end that do everything they can to get you citizenship.
Yeah, thank you for that. And as you pointed out, we have good relationships with the consulates. It's just that they are busy places and not always across how those applications need to be processed. So we, again, for German and Czech, we don't typically file applications through the consulates because they don't process them. They send them off to the BVA or the Czech Citizenship Office anyway. And sometimes at the consulate, things might just sit on someone's desk because they're busy or they have other priorities. So one of the reasons that, you know, we encourage people to work with us is that we take on that burden of managing, you know, paperwork and also different pathways, because sometimes people might qualify not just for a different pathway within a citizenship, but they might also qualify for another citizenship, which is easier to do. And Alexandra, with you too, why would you say that we encourage people to work with us? I mean, apart from working with lovely people like you and Marina, what would you say would be some of the benefits or advantages?
I would say, similar to what Marina said, our expertise. As you know, we have over 20 years of experience. We've worked on thousands and thousands of cases from Czech to Polish to German. So we have a team of people who have fine-tuned the process and found the easiest and the most cost-effective ways to get citizenship for people. And then also I would say that many of the team that work at Polaron are EU citizens themselves. So yes, first-hand experience of going through the process and what it means to us and the value of what this would mean for other people. So I think working with people who understand that and can go through that process with you, I think that's also very important.
Yeah, so I'm full of admiration of your work, actually. And, you know, when the company first started doing citizenship, it was just Polish, and I'm personally always very invested in people's cases because it's more than citizenship. A lot of the time it's the documents that they receive or the research that we give them that paint a picture of their family. Because, you know, oftentimes people's ancestors just didn't talk about it. In those days, you were supposed to just get on with your life and off you go. And I think in addition to your passport, we also give you a lot more. We connect people with their heritage. And we do have a bit of a reputation, and I'm sure you know this, in that we take cases that nobody else does or wants to take. So the consulates or, you know, let's say it as it is, plainly, some of our competitors are more transactional. You know, unless you come with everything, they'll say, don't bother, you don't qualify, or, you know, don't waste my time. But we go deeper and, you know, we have massive success rates. For German, it's close to 100%. Czech's very close to 100%. So, you know, if you're a busy person, don't have much information on your family, it makes sense to, you know, entrust your application with someone that actually knows what they're doing. We do reduce timelines, I would also say, because by not going through the consulate, you go directly to the government. You might cut out up to 6 months from the processing time. And we also are pretty good at communicating. So Alexandra and Marina deal with eligibility, and they help people navigate which pathway they qualify under. But then we have a whole team of people, I think 25 people in Europe, and they, you know, specialize in document management, in translations, in filing the application, liaising with the government. So it's like a big team behind each of you if you decide to proceed with the application. Stephanie, I might hand over to you in case we have any questions, but you know, we love our work, so you can clearly see that through Alexandra's and Marina's passion, and hopefully mine as well. Stephanie, any questions?
We've had a lot of questions, so I would recommend
We have
to
5
everyone
minutes.
who were not able to get to today that book a discovery session, have a look on our website. We've got eligibility assessments, so there are pathways to sort of help you with those questions you've had today, but I'll get started.
Thank
So
you.
the first question is, can we vote in Polish elections as dual citizens? If so, how do we go about this?
That's a question for me. Yes, you can. So not just Polish elections, but if you have German, you'll be entitled to vote. If you have Czech, you'll be entitled to vote. And the Polish elections are indeed coming up later this year. So if you live near a consulate, there'll be a polling station set up at the consulate. If you live outside of the consulate, there are polling stations in honorary consulates and other places like Polish community centers. People are not just eligible to vote, but I think once you get your citizenship, it's also a kind of obligation. So yes, in answer to your question, absolutely.
Great. Another question is, do you help with Italian citizenship through marriage?
No, and yes. So yes, but no, but yes, but no. So Italians are a bit of a special case, as is Greek, because you need to go through the consulate. We have found a pathway of doing it directly with the Italian government, which is quite complicated and quite expensive because you need to engage a lawyer in Italy. But typically waiting times for a consular appointment, depending on the country, are 3 to 5 years. So it's a system that's very clogged up. But our colleague Evelina deals with the Italian consulate. Happy to put you in contact with her, and she can assist you. But it does require a lot of work and a lot of navigating of a very bureaucratic system.
Mm-hmm. Another question is, my father was American and my mother was German. What documents do I need?
Marina, could you give us a 30-second overview?
Yeah, so you would obviously need to find out if you're still eligible, because it's not always just that your mother was German and your father was a foreigner. But yeah, any kind of documents from your mother, like birth certificate, residential records. So you pretty much have to prove that she was a German citizen. So this is what you need for any kind of future application. To prove that your mother held German citizenship. So that can be through a various amount of documents.
And that, of course, will depend on what pathway we are selecting. But typically, if I may, it'll be documents proving who you are. So your birth certificate, copy of a passport, and linking you to whoever ancestor you are applying under. So let's say it's your mother. And then, so, you know, typically your birth certificate would show that your mother's your mother. And then, you know, we'd have to prove that she was German. And from the time that she was born to the time that you were born until you were 18, you did not lose your citizenship. So it's a strange thing, but we look at exclusions or things that can trigger you losing citizenship rather than whether you have it or not. So those documents might range from naturalization documents to, you know, German passports, or just depending on circumstances.
Great, thank you. I think we've probably got time for 1 or 2 more questions.
Go for it, Stephanie.
This one's for Eva, which I think has a great story behind it. So how did an Australian company that is far from Europe become an expert on European citizenship, and how do you get help with finding documents and doing research?
Great question. So all of this happened by accident. So we have a translation company that I established back in 2000. And around 2003, we started getting inquiries. So this is just before Poland entered the EU. We started getting inquiries for translations of documents. So it took us maybe about 18 months, but we packaged that service and started delivering, you know, citizenship with guaranteed outcomes for Polish. And then around 8 years ago, we started doing German, then Czech, Slovak, and we also do some others like Croatian and etc. But the reason that I'm in Australia is because I came here as a refugee nearly 40 years ago, and this is where I live. But our offices are globally, and we do have a very strong presence with about 25 people in Europe. The best part of my job is that I get to travel there, and we're very connected. We do have citizenship specialists in Poland, in Czech Republic, and we have people that deal with German and all of them. So they specialize in each of the nationalities. And look, essentially, we build a pretty robust and efficient system that checks eligibility, offers services, and people choose to go ahead with them. Then we have people that process those applications. And on that note, I think we've run out of time. So the only thing that's left for me to do is to thank Alexandra and Marina and Stephanie for inviting me to this session. You can see our contact details on the screen. We will also post links to where you can book a discovery call with Alexandra and Marina. And it's free. There's no obligation for you to proceed with any of our services. So if you are sitting there thinking, I wonder whether I'm eligible, get in contact with Alex and Marina.
Thank you so much.